Let's talk about a really dangerous myth that could honestly cost your business a fortune. It's the old idea that cash is king because it's untraceable. Well, we're here today to show you exactly why that belief is completely out of date. This whole discussion has been put together by the tax experts at My Tax Accountant, and we're going to pull back the curtain on how, as we head into 2026, HMRC's digital net means there's really nowhere left to hide. So stay with me, you're going to want to see this.
All right, let's make this real for a second. Picture this. You run a busy little cafe up in Manchester. Or maybe you're a freelance designer in London. You've had an amazing week, you've got 10 grand in cash, and you go and deposit it in the bank. You see the number pop up on your statement, and you probably think, great, job done, right? But what if I told you that in 2026, that simple deposit could be the very thing that triggers an alarm bell deep inside HMRC?
So, you might be asking, why is the taxman so incredibly focused on this stuff all of a sudden? Well, it all boils down to one absolutely massive number, £46.8 billion. That's the UK's estimated tax gap. In simple terms, it's the colossal amount of money that HMRC should have collected but didn't. And why does that matter to you? Because that number is the fuel driving a massive crackdown, which means more scrutiny and more audits for businesses just like yours. And just so you know where all this is coming from, these insights are straight from the front line. They've been developed by the expert team at My Tax Accountant. These are the people who deal with HMRC and business accounts day in, day out. So this isn't theory, it's a real-world look at how the system actually works from the people who know it best.
Okay, so here's what we're going to walk through. First, we'll look at what we're calling HMRC's hidden tax war. Then, I'll introduce you to the digital detective that quite literally never sleeps. After that, we'll see why there's nowhere left to hide and explore the very high cost of getting this wrong. And most importantly, we'll wrap up with a simple 5-point shield to keep you safe and explain when it's time to call for help.
Right, let's jump straight in. Section 1, HMRC's hidden tax war. Now, I want to be really clear. This isn't about scaremongering, not at all. This is about being prepared. It's about understanding the new reality for UK businesses in 2026, because believe me, the ground has well and truly shifted.
See, to try and close that multi-billion-pound gap, HMRC has been given a whole new arsenal of powers. For 2026, they've got a dedicated small business evasion team packed with criminal investigators. But you'll want to hear this next part because it's a real game changer. There's a new offense for recklessness. What this means is you no longer have to have intended to commit fraud to be prosecuted. Just being seriously careless with your tax affairs could be enough to land you in very hot water. So they have the motive, that enormous tax gap, and they have the new powers. But how do they actually pinpoint you out of millions of businesses? Well, let's move on and meet their secret weapon, the digital detective. This is the technology that finds patterns that most people think are completely invisible.
At the absolute heart of HMRC's entire operation is a system called Connect. Now, it's not some kind of sci-fi artificial intelligence. The best way to think of it is like a digital bloodhound. Its one and only job is to sniff through billions of bits of information to build a detailed financial profile of every taxpayer looking for anything at all that just doesn't quite add up.
And when I say billions, I really do mean it. The scale of this thing is just staggering. Right now, Connect holds over 55 billion separate pieces of data on UK taxpayers. Just let that sink in for a moment. It gives you a sense of just how wide a net they can cast now. That little cash side hustle you thought was under the radar, chances are it's a line of data in this system.
Now, what's really fascinating here is where Connect gets its data from. I mean, obviously it's looking at your bank accounts and property records, but it's also pulling in data from your sales on eBay, your lettings on Airbnb, and here's the bit that catches so many people out. It can even scan your public social media posts. So if your tax return says you only earn 20 grand, but your Instagram is full of photos of a brand new car and a luxury holiday, well, Connect flags that instantly.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. In one of their own official statements, HMRC said, and I'm quoting here, that the system identifies hidden relationships that could not previously be identified. It's designed, in their own words, to connect the dots. It finds the hidden links between what you say you earn and how you actually live. Okay, this brings us to a really crucial point, especially for any business that deals with cash. Let's look at how your financial activity gets reported back to the authorities, often without you even realizing it's happening. The walls really are closing in, and it's vital you understand how.
All right, you'll definitely want to pay attention here. There's a big myth that banks have some sort of secret hotline to HMRC to report big deposits.
That's not quite how it works. The reality is that if your bank suspects any kind of financial crime, and that absolutely includes tax evasion, they are legally required to file what's called a Suspicious Activity Report, or a SAR. And where do those reports go? Straight to the authorities, who you can bet work very closely with HMRC.
So, what makes a bank suspicious? Well, ironically, the number one red flag is something people do when they're trying to be clever. It's called structuring. This is where you deliberately break up a big cash sum into smaller deposits to try and fly under the radar. You know, putting in £9,000 on Monday and another 9 on Wednesday. Far from making you invisible, that pattern screams, "I'm hiding something," to the bank's software. It's probably the fastest way to get a SAR filed.
And this isn't just about cash in the bank anymore. Since January 2024, new rules mean that online platforms like eBay, Etsy, and Airbnb have to automatically report what their sellers earn directly to HMRC. And come January 2026, the same rules are coming for crypto exchanges. The takeaway here is huge. The job of reporting is shifting from you to the platforms themselves, making it almost impossible for that income to be missed.
Okay, so we've seen how HMRC can find you, but what actually happens when they do? Let's talk about the consequences, because honestly, the financial cost of being caught out can be absolutely devastating for a small business.
Now here is where being proactive can literally save you thousands of pounds. It often starts with a nudge letter from HMRC, a friendly-looking note just asking you to double-check things. The timing here is absolutely critical. If you find a mistake yourself and you tell HMRC before they contact you, that's called an unprompted disclosure, and penalties are at their lowest. But if you only own up after you get that letter, it's prompted and the financial hit will be much, much harder.
And trust me, these penalties are no joke. They get bigger depending on how HMRC sees your behavior. A simple, careless mistake could cost you up to 30% of the tax you owe. But if they decide what you did was deliberate and concealed, that penalty can rocket up to 100%. And for some older issues, under the failure to correct rules, the penalties can reach a mind-boggling 200% of the tax owed. That's double your original tax bill slapped on top of the bill itself.
Okay, I know that all sounds pretty heavy, but let's shift from the problem to the solution. The good news is that being compliant is your absolute best defense, and protecting your business is actually more straightforward than you might think. Let's call this your 5-point compliance shield. Think of this as your simple must-do checklist. Number 1, keep meticulous records. I can't stress this enough. It's non-negotiable. 2, create a paper trail. If you get a large cash payment, make sure there's an invoice for it. 3, declare all your income, no matter how small it seems. 4, deposit the full amount. Just bank it all in one go. And 5, if that dreaded brown envelope from HMRC does arrive, respond immediately. Whatever you do, don't bury your head in the sand.
And if you take just one practical tip away from all of this, please make it this one. Direct from the experts at My Tax Accountant. They say, always deposit the full amount. Trying to be clever by splitting it up is what makes you look suspicious to the bank's computers, not the other way around. That is such a crucial thing to remember.
And that brings us to our final section, knowing when it's time to call for help and thinking about your next steps. We have covered a lot of ground, so let's just boil everything down to the absolute essentials you need to take away from this.
Look, if you only remember 3 things today, make it these. First, work on the assumption that HMRC can see pretty much everything. Your digital footprint is like an open book. Second, remember it's suspicious patterns that banks report, not just single large amounts. And third, good, clean, organized record keeping is, and always will be, your single best line of defense.
Right, before we finish, just a very quick and important disclaimer. Everything we've discussed is for general guidance, and it's accurate for January 2026, but it shouldn't be the only thing you rely on for your business's financial decisions. Look, if anything here has made you feel a bit uneasy, or you just want that peace of mind knowing you're doing everything right, the smartest move is to talk to a professional. For expert advice that's tailored to your exact situation, get in touch with My Tax Accountant. Their number is 0208 570 8531, and the email is info@mytaxaccountant.co.uk. And of course, if you found this useful, please do consider subscribing to their channel. Thank you so much for your time.